Hello again, everyone. You've made it over the halfway mark. We've talked a lot today about building a better world, whether that's a better internet, like Ben suggested we're doing at Pinterest, or a fictional town like Schitt's Creek where anyone can feel at home, no matter who you love. And as Sinead just mentioned, brands play a big role in bringing these inclusive spaces to life in the real world. Next up, I'm very excited to be joined by Alex Panousis, CEO of Dentsu Media, to talk about how she and her agency learned to be nimble in a time of extreme change and what leadership in advertising looks like in 2021. 2020 was a year of agility, with campaigns and strategies shifting overnight, sometimes within the same day. What tools did you and your teams harness to inform your on-the-fly strategies?
Yeah, I mean, agility. What a big word in 2020 for sure. I think, look, we're in the middle of a period of huge change at a macro, digital, and economic level. And while the strategic long-term media, planning still adds massive value, we need to learn to move faster. And I think that was one of our biggest lessons and opportunities in 2020. And it was clear in 2020 that brands that had agility at the core of their marketing function were the ones that were best placed to capitalize. Now, the complexity, I think, is that much of the data and many of the tools that we have are backwards looking. And so during COVID, we really recognized this need for real time. And in most cases, from our perspective at Dentsu, we were pivoting daily. I mean, it was speed trumps perfection. That was one thing. And we were using tools like Pinterest Insights to help us gain and understand performance, understand facts, understand what was happening in real time. I also think it was an extraordinary time in culture, and watching how the people used Pinterest was so interesting, right? It was about gaining a sense of comfort. It was about gaining a sense of, home as sanctuary. It was about looking at how they were using DIY and the crazy things that were kind of coming up on the platform, and just learning to really see and pay attention to what people were really doing.
It really feels like we're at a highly important inflection point in advertising. After last summer, brands and agencies are empowered now more than ever before to demand a lot from their platform partners. How are you approaching brand safety? What standards are you holding your partners to in order to ensure, at the most basic level, that your clients' messages don't show up in a negative context?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think, again, 2020 was a year like no other. And the days of the Wild West and kind of everyone kind of moving in different directions is over. I think most reasonable people want responsible, meaningful connections in the digital landscape, and they expect the platforms to steward this. But we know that this is a shared accountability. It's agencies have to be part of the solution, platforms have to be part of the solution, and frankly, brands do too. So in addition to the tech monitoring, we really believe in human intervention, and we also want to better understand the philosophy of the platforms. So I don't think the debate is longer about like the divisive polarization of things like hate speech and free speech. I think, today we have a responsibility in ensuring that how a brand shows up and what a brand shows up in matters. So context is as important as what a brand says. Where a brand lives is as important as everything that the consumer sees. So I think it's shared accountability, and I think it's looking at the entire ecosystem. And another thing is, we also believe in context. What you buy and where you show up matters. It matters more today than ever before. And I think that scrutiny, that's the one thing that I think clients, agencies, and platforms are recognizing. Context matters. And I think that's the part, and I believe as even as we transition out of the cookieless world and we start to think about, what we're going to do to kind of navigate in that space, that the thematic and the principle of context matters is going to be a really important pillar for advertising moving forward.
Thank you, Alex. That's such an inspiring perspective about how everybody needs to have a voice. And one thing you said that I particularly loved is that the best ideas have to rise to the top, even if not necessarily spoken by the loudest voice or the most senior person in the room. And I love that principle a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think, at least I'm particularly sensitive about is I tend to be an introvert in my personal life. Like I'm not an extrovert. I've learned in my job that I have to raise, I have to have the hand. But one of the things I find that is interesting about different generations and different voices is pulling it out. And so sometimes the loudest voice is the one you hear. I think it's really important to ask people, hey, what do you think? And force them to actually engage. And that makes them, I hate to use the word the lean in, because I think it's a little bit of a cliche now, but it's actually true, right? People need to lean in. And I think as a leader, you need to bring those people to the table and you need to ask them. And I think when you ask someone, they'll tell you. And I think that's been a massively important lesson that I've learned in my career, and one that I try really hard to practice, that, you've got to bring in, you've got to engage those voices. And then they feel like they belong. And then they feel like that contribution matters. And that's how leadership and that virtual cycle of leadership rises and changes and makes organizations stronger and better. And I think better for business, better for clients, better for everyone.
There's so many memes about 2020 out there, some of which have gotten tiresome. But it's easy to suggest that there may have been some beauty in the pain. And I'm wondering for you if there was anything about this year that was actually inspiring.
I joined Dentsu in April of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. I have yet to meet the team that I am leading in person. It's all been virtual. And so part of what I had to kind of give up was my preconceived notions on how to connect, how to inspire, how to lead, because I was now doing it on Zoom or on Teams or on different technology platforms, and that was tough. So the thing that I learned in 2020, the most important lesson that I took away from the year is to learn that there is no pre-planning. It is messy. It's about taking the facts in front of you and making the best decision you can. It's recognizing that all of us are struggling, and that this idea of resilience and learning what that means, both as a human being, as an individual, as a mom, as a human, as a person, and also as a business leader, I think was a really important lesson to learn. It's almost like how much could we actually take and how well could we do? Dentsu in 2020 worked their asses off to deliver smart advice to clients, to help them rise, to help them think through, the different challenges. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that they've done. I think that will be a lesson in time that we will take with us. I think it was one of our proudest moments for sure. And I think, ultimately it will translate in a way that will make us better marketers, better people. Being messy is something that I actually think, we're proud of. You're seeing my house. It's not perfect. I've got all the pillows are on the floor, and it's, my hair is a mess, and I'm not wearing, whatever, the suits and the makeup. And that's okay. And we learned that. That's one of the big things that we learned. We learned that it was okay to show up, to be authentic, and to find ways to belong, and to find ways to actually, to be inspired. And I think, look, as a partner, I think you guys did a great job in that. You showed us different opportunities to understand what people were really thinking and doing. And one of the things that I love about Pinterest is in the middle of that grayness, there was inspiration. People were dreaming about travel. People were learning how to cook, the DIY projects. And there were brands that I thought did a phenomenal job last year on your platform. Not necessarily brands that I work on. Brands like, one of my favorite campaigns was the Sobeys Voila campaign, which I thought was brilliant. I thought they did an incredible job at really kind of using the platform at its greatest potential. So those are some things that I think, resilience, trying, doing different things, and being messy.
Thank you so much, Alex, for spending this time with us today. I'm inspired by your shirt, by the beauty of messiness, and by all your rich perspective. And in realizing that I also need to do as much learning as you're doing. It's really incredible that you found so much hope and curiosity through many difficult times, and certainly this year. And so thank you a lot. We really, really appreciate hearing from you, and we are thankful for your partnership.
Yeah, and you know what? I thank you as well, Erin. That was super gracious. And look, this is an industry, we are lucky to be in it. We should be inspired every single day. You guys are a huge partner in that inspiration. Thank you for inviting me, and wish you guys all the best in the rest of your conference today.